Hi, it's Chris from Epix Systems again. This is a short tutorial on how to use what we call in our system the generic job importer, and that's the tool that we would use to import jobs from a spreadsheet template rather than creating them yourself manually. So you might do this if your client, say, was to send you a list of jobs in bulk and you wanted to import them rather than have to manually add them one by one. There are two things that you'll need to do in order to get this working for you. The first is that you'll need to add a dashboard widget to your front screen, to your dashboard. And the one that you need to add is this one here that I'm showing now. This is the uploading of a spreadsheet. Now to do that, we would click on the personalize button, and the one that you're looking for is this one here. It's the spreadsheet importer for importing jobs. So you would need to add that to a position on your dashboard, and it would then appear here. Now there is a download job template button, so this is the second thing you need to do. You need to create your actual template of jobs to import, and it does have to be in a very specific format. So you can download this job template, and by clicking on there it does download the template file here. So if I was to click onto this one here, the file that loads looks a little bit like this. It just simply has some headings in there, all of which reference things to do with the system, but none of which will be overly helpful for you at this stage if it's the first time you're doing it. So what I'd like to show you is a template that I've created earlier, and this should help you understand the sorts of data that we're looking for within this file so that you can successfully upload your jobs. So what you're looking at here is a template file that I've put together that can be used as an instruction for you to remind you of the sorts of data that you need to put in. If you would like a copy of this, then please do ask and I can certainly send this over to you. There's two tabs. The first tab here is the instructions, and then the second one is the import format itself. So if you remember the CSV file I've just downloaded from our system, it looks a little bit like this. Obviously I've changed the colours and I've added an extra row. But what we've got here is we've got some very specific data that has to come from your system and also from the list of jobs that you're trying to import. So let's look at it in a list view for a start so we can see a description. The first field is the client. Now this is the client code or the account reference from within the system. So an example of that I've put here as Epix 001. And similarly, the branch, this is the client branch or the division of the client that you want to import this job for, and again it's the reference for that client. So this one again is, in my example, Epix 001. So let's go over to our system now. If I go to create a simple job or create a manual job, and we land on this page here, if I start to type the name of our client, over here is the reference. So as you can see, if I zoom in on that, the reference for this client is Epix 001. If I click on the question mark for our branch, again, there is our reference, Epix 001. And that is what goes in our template. So if I go over to the import format now, of course, this is an example row of a job that we might import. Here we can see our reference for both the client and the branch. Now the next field in our list is the contract field, and this is again the contract or the call type or the work type, however you caption that in your system, that this job is for. So again, our example here shows the Epix-React. It's the client or contract reference. So in this case, if I go back to our system again, the contract field here, that's the question mark, we'll see a list of all available contracts here. And the one I wanted to add it to was our reactive works, where you can see in the middle here the Epix-React is the reference. And so that is the reference that I have then put in the spreadsheet template. Now the next two fields that we require, the contractor and the depot, these are from the back end of the system almost. These are the ones that relate to how when we set your system up. So it's usually the company or the divisions, maybe the splits perhaps of any depots that you've got going on in your system. So you may or may not know what the reference for this is. If you do get stuck on that and you want to find out what that is and you can't get to that information yourself, then do ask. You can often find it in your contract setup screen. So if you do need to find it in there, you can have a look. If you're not sure, then do ask. I'll just show you though how to find it within the contract setup. So back in our system, if I step into the contract here by clicking on the plus symbol, here is the one I'm using. That was, if I press the edit button, the fields that are already populated now that we could edit if we were changing the contract, you can see here if we click on the question mark, again the reference. So there is the reference for my contractor record, and similarly there is the reference for the depot or the division. So back into our template, you can see I've put those two references here. The next field down is the priority reference. Now the priority, if we just come out of there and go back to our job entry screen, the priority is this field here, and the priority field is simply the SLA. So I've put this on priority 3, which is the P3 over here, for 5 working days. So there you can see P3. Now the next part of the template is all to do with the asset and the address that you're logging the job for. So that's the asset reference, the address of the property or the site, and its postcode. Now this information, if it's already in the system, you can get at that in the same way that I've just shown you, by clicking into here and either selecting the question mark if you've only got a few to choose from, or you could actually search for the actual property. And of course, if your client has sent you a big list of jobs to import, then it would be hoped that perhaps all this information would be on that spreadsheet already. If not, the references you need are again these here. So there is our site reference for 79 Oxford Street, it's Epix 001, and for the one in Birmingham would be 002. So in our spreadsheet we would simply put Epix 001 in there, and in there would go the address, exactly as you want it to appear on the job. And then the postcode, exactly as you want it to appear on the job. And of course, over on our import format, we can now see this is starting to take shape here. So there we have our property information. Now the next part of what we need to do is all about the job itself. So we're looking here for the job number, dates that are relevant to the job description itself, and indeed if there are any SOR codes that you want to add. So if I pop back to our instructions tab one moment, you can see the sorts of things that we're looking for here. So the job number is what would appear on the job reference or the customer order number within your job entry system. So if we go back here, it's this one here. So in our demo system, it's the job number. So quite often when you press the generate new button, you get a CRN number. So it's whatever number you want to go in there. So if the client has provided you with a list of job numbers, again, that would go in here. The received date and the required date are the dates that relate to the job. So when did you receive it, and when are you expected to have completed the work? So those you can enter in date format. And then the job is simply the job description. Now the job description is here, so the details of the job itself. Finally, the SOR codes. If your job has got an SOR code on it, or more than one SOR code, you can add these at this point. If you're not working to SORs, then you can just simply leave all this blank. So you would remove those and then save your template without them. So if our job had an SOR code on it, or more than one SOR code on it, then you would structure it just like this. So as you can see, we've got the original row here where I've amended the job description and added a code. And our second row, all of this is identical, except what we've done is we've added an SOR code on the end with a different code and a different rate, of course. So if you had 10 SOR codes, then this line here, all this information would be repeated 10 times, and then the different codes would be listed here. So it would only create the one job, but it would create the job with each of these codes within it. And of course, once you would decide to do a different job for a different site, then you would simply put the new row underneath. So to demonstrate that then, I've just added a third row here now, and this is for a different site completely, on a different job number, and for one with an SOR code as well. So what we would do with our template at this stage is we would now save this as a CSV file. A spreadsheet won't upload, it has to be a CSV file. So I'm going to save a copy of this now. I'll just simply, for now, place it on my desktop, and I'm going to call it a example import, and I save this as a CSV. So back on our dashboard, if I scroll down here to the new widget that I've added, we can choose the file that we're going to upload. So again, that's the example import that I've just saved. It's loaded the file in here, and then from the drop down list I select what I'm doing. So this of course is a job import, so I'm going to choose the generic job importer, and then I press the upload button. By pressing upload, I then get this message here. So what we're looking for here really is that message there. That just simply means it's done. So we can now close there. If I scroll back up to the top here, the items requiring action widget, if I refresh that, of course I could have done the home button, which would also refresh it as well. If I press the refresh button here, what I'm looking for is a new batch of jobs appearing as a status called received via import. So if I press that now, there we go, received via import, and there are 2 jobs. So if I click on those 2, we can see here now that we have got 2 jobs, replacement consumer unit and test, and then this second job here for the site in Birmingham for the electrical test. So if I was to click into, say, this first one here, you can see here all the information on the top of the job sheet is the information that we added into the template. So things down to the job description, the dates, the job number, and of course the contract and the client are all correct. You'll also notice that the job has been assigned a trade of electrician, and that's because the SOR codes that I used on those 2 jobs that I imported both were electrical trade job SOR codes. So the trade is defined by the electrical trade that came from the SOR code. Speaking of SOR codes, if I scroll down now, we can see that on our sales lines here we've got 2 SOR codes, both with ordered values for the codes that I used on the template file. Now the actual process that you do need to do in order to do something with these jobs, at the moment they are at a status of received via import. You do need to pull these jobs into the system. So they're already ticked to do so. If you decided to reject them for whatever reason, then you could turn it into a cross. And of course you can also edit the details on the job at this point if you so wish. But really, to get these jobs into the system so that you can do work on them, you just simply press process jobs. That's now removed these from this status, and as you can see by the message at the top of your screen, these have now gone to a status of awaiting allocation. So if I was to close this screen now, what we should now see is that the jobs are received via import. So the 2 of them, if I refresh there, they've now disappeared, and the awaiting allocation list has now gone up by 2. So you can now action those jobs just as you would normally. If you've got any questions about anything you've seen here, or you would like me to send over an example template, or indeed just talk you through the process, then don't hesitate to give me a shout.